Good evening. We started, this is the meeting of the Wyndham Raymond School Board of Directors. We started our session, we opened our session with executive sessions in the superintendent's conference room at 5:30. We are now beginning our regular session. And first on the list is for an opportunity for any public input for any items not in the agenda. And seeing no public, we'll now move on to the auditor's report for 2018-2019. You'd like to come up? Thank you.
If
Mr.
I may,
Yes?
It's my pleasure to introduce Amy Chasse, who has been responsible now for, I think, our audit for the last 3, if not 4 years directly, and has been a great partner for our business office as far as answering questions, but also making sure that the public money that we've been entrusted with, that we're spending it in the manner that we say that we're doing it, and that also that all of our expenses, as well as all of the different activities that we do within the district, fall upon acceptable financial guidelines. And Amy's been a great resource for us and is always available to answer Stacy's questions that she might have. And so it's my pleasure to welcome her tonight to present our fiscal year 19 audit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. It's hard to believe it's already been a year and that a year has gone by, and I am here once again to present the 6/30/2019 RSU 14 financial statement and compliance audits that we recently completed. I want to first thank Chris and Stacy Webster, as well as the other members of the central office staff, for all their help in making sure and ensuring that the audit is done timely and efficiently. I do want to state, and I've repeated this in prior years' presentations, that the audit did go extremely well once again this year, and that's a huge part because of Stacy's role. She does a lot of the heavy lifting from the interim phases of the audit, which we begin in probably mid-May, where we come in and do pre-audit work where the financial statement numbers do not need to be finalized at that point. A lot of our internal control testing is done at that time. Stacy's a tremendous help with that, right through the completion of the audit to ensure that all our deadlines are met. So she does a really good job at ensuring that this audit goes smoothly as well as it does. This evening, in front of you, you have a PowerPoint presentation which is about 8 or 9 pages long with some graphs in it. That is what I am going to review with you. It does summarize the audit results, and it primarily focuses on your general fund, which happens to be your largest fund, and that's what we will review. It condenses all the bound reports that are also in front of you into this more understandable packet. At any time, if you have any questions as I'm going through this, feel free to interrupt, and I will do my best to answer them. If they are more specific, we may have to defer to Chris to assist us, or I will have to get back to you on that. Turning to page 2 of the presentation is the summary of the audit results. The financial statement audit of the district received what we call an unmodified opinion. That simply means you received a clean opinion. Your financial statements are fairly stated in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, or what we call GAAP. That was the financial statement audit. In addition to that financial statement audit, you underwent 2 compliance audits. One of those audits is an audit in accordance with government auditing standards, or the Yellow Book. Basically, we are auditing the internal controls processes, or the RSU's financial reporting processes regarding internal controls. We had no material weaknesses, which a material weakness would mean a severe that the district is not following their controls as they should be, and it would be a severe issue. Then a much less severe matter is known as a significant deficiency. There are two significant deficiencies that we identify. They happen to be repeats. They are common at other districts and other municipalities throughout the state that we audit. One of them being segregation of duties, and the other one is preparation of the financial statements. The central office staff is just too small to be able to get appropriate segregation of duties. It's just not cost effective to hire another body or two other bodies to be able to properly segregate roles within the central office staff. Don't be alarmed. This is a repeated comment, and it's very common amongst other finance offices. And the same goes with the preparation of financial statements. Essentially, Stacy would have, in an ideal world, would be the one to prepare your audited financial statements. Once again, we come in, we have software that assists us in taking your trial balance, putting it into ours, and we're presenting your financial statements and preparing them in accordance with all the different government auditing standards that we're required to present in your financial statements. It would not be efficient to have her start preparing financial statements. But unfortunately, in the audit world, it becomes a significant deficiency. The district and the board, you do a wonderful job reviewing the monthly reports that are given and presented to you. If you continue to do that, if there was something that came about that you weren't sure about, you would be able to identify if there was any issues. There were no issues that we noted. The second audit or compliance audit that we did was an audit in accordance with the uniform guidance. That is a grant-specific audit. For 2019, we tested the school nutrition cluster. That was a program that we repeated testing on because last year when we tested it, we did find a finding and we reported on it for the verification report that was filed with the state a couple days late. Unfortunately, it stemmed and it caused a finding, so we were required to retest that program again this year. I'm happy to report this program came out clean, and we had no findings when we audited the school nutrition cluster again this year. The reason why you are getting or required to undergo a uniform guidance audit is the district expends more than $750,000 in federal funds. If you were to spend less than $750,000, you would not need such a grant-specific audit, but you do, and it's required. In addition to these two compliance audits, we also did a variety of internal control testing. We tested the cash disbursement process and found no issues on the sample of disbursements that we tested. We are required, if a population size is over 160 transactions, we have to test 40 transactions. We tested 40 various transactions, which we randomly picked, and did not find any instances of non-compliance. That means that the district is following the proper internal control procedures that it has documented in its write-ups, which are provided to us and updated each year for any changes. The next area of internal control testing that we did was cash receipts. We looked at the general cash receipts that the district receives, ensured that it was properly deposited in the proper account, deposit slips were provided, and all the proper backup was given to us. Again, no issues were noted with the receipting process. The next area was the payroll disbursements. Once again, we picked 40 different employees to look at pay rates. We ensure that the hours paid we select 2 different payroll periods. We ensure that their timesheets agree to the hours that they've worked and have reported on the payroll registers. We look at their mean PERS retirement contributions to ensure those are properly calculated. We also look at their health insurance withholdings to ensure deductions to ensure that what they elect, whether it be a single or a family or a child and spouse plan, that the proper deductions are being taken out on the employee portion as well as the employer portion. And then we trace it back to your Anthem health insurance bill to make sure that they're actually eligible for health insurance and are reported on that bill. Again, no issues were noted in the payroll process. And finally, the last area are your various school activity funds. This is an area that we test each and every year, and I have to say this year it has improved over prior years. We still have 2 management letter comments regarding the timely depositing of funds, which happens to be repeated each and every year, but it has improved significantly. This year, the Manchester School and Wyndham Middle School did not have timely deposit of funds in, I believe, 4 instances. And I just think it's the control, ensuring either the teachers or the secretaries want to make sure they have collected all the funds before they actually go out and make that deposit. And unfortunately, sometimes it can be 3 or 4 weeks before that deposit gets made. We just recommend that you continue to work with the team at each of the schools. Even though the other schools came back okay this year, just keep reiterating that it's important that timely deposits get made, whether or not a fundraising, project is complete or not. And that's primarily when, if there's a field trip, you might collect money for a couple weeks. If they can deposit that money each week, let's say, or every couple days, because sometimes the money that's collected can amount to, a lot of money. So I just would recommend that you continue to work with them, but I want to say we have seen improvement this year over prior years, so that I was pleased about that. And the other one management letter comment that I have in that letter is there are 2 new pronouncements that are going to be taking effect. One effective as of 6/30/2020, which is known as GASB 84. I have already talked with Stacy about how we're going to address that issue, so we're all set on that aspect. And the other pronouncement that's coming out is only going to take effect as of June 30, 2021, so you have a couple years. It's the treatment of leases and capital leases. And again, once the time comes, I will discuss what needs to happen with Stacy. And both Chris and Stacy are proactive in ensuring that the district is following right protocol to ensure that these GASBs are properly implemented.
What does GASB mean?
Government Auditing Standards Board. So those are pronouncements that come out. They can issue 5 or 6 a year. Sometimes we don't have any, but these 2 that are coming that are going to be effective will impact your financial statements and how they're presented only. So we like to bring the board up to speed on those.
Thank you.
The next page is a graph about your fund balance. Again, as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to focus on the general fund, that being your largest fund. Additional detail of any of the fund balance accounts that are mentioned this evening, and specifically regarding the general fund, can be found on page 28 of your financial statements, and that's the thicker bound report that you have in front of you. But your total fund balance increased about $382,000 from last year. That's always good. That's always good to see. You do have about $6 million of fund balance that's assigned, 1.2 assigned for the subsequent year's budget, and 4.8 assigned for various district-wide capital improvement projects that are in the works. The next page reviews the general fund revenues. Your intergovernmental revenues exceeded budget by about $104,000, and that's just due to additional subsidy for high out of district tuition that was received. Your interest earned was over budget or came in over budget, and again, that's due to greater than expected investment earnings and the fact that there's a conservative budgeting approach there compared to what the actual earnings were. Your other revenues exceeded budget as well by about $144,000. That is due to approximately $49,000 in insurance proceeds and a workers' comp insurance refund that was received that had not been budgeted for. $54,000 in additional auditorium rental fees that were received, and an additional $8,000 in transportation fees for field trips that had not been budgeted. The $1.2 million that is shown for a budget number is essentially the carryover number, but none of that was used. And then you had a transfer in of $5,898. All your expenditure or cost, your 11 cost articles came in under budget, with the exception of school administration and facilities maintenance. Facilities maintenance was over budget due to an increase in unanticipated adult ed portable costs and boiler repairs. All the other cost centers came in under budget. Staff attrition, unfilled positions in the transportation department, as well as a bus garage lease that came in less than was budgeted for, all contributed to those savings. The next 3 pages, 6, 7, and 8, are 3 different graphs. The graphs on page 6 just show how much of your total revenues comes from your local assessments, and how much of your total revenues comes from or what we call intergovernmental revenues, which is your state subsidy, Medicaid reimbursements, or state agency client revenue. That's pretty consistent from year to year. Nothing alarming here. And then the next 2 graphs are 2 graphs comparing your 2018 and 2019 expenditures. When you look at the percentages between the 2 years, they are pretty much dead on with each other. There are no unusual fluctuations whatsoever. Regular instruction, special ed, and maintenance make up the bulk of your total expenditures, as would be expected.
Question. On 2018, I see career and technical education for 0.93%, but it's not even on 2019.
There was
that, if I can answer that,
sure.
It's under the new CTE funding is now going directly to the vocational centers, and it's not coming through us anymore. There's no more flow through, and so that's why it's disappeared off of our expenditures.
And then the final graph just goes over the other fund balances for all your other funds, your school nutrition fund, your school grants, adult ed, and capital projects. No longer a part of the real schools, no longer part of the RSU. Therefore, that has That is now zero for the last 3 years. School lunch showed a zero fund balance. We brought that, or per management recommendations, that includes an $84,000 transfer in from the general fund to eliminate that deficit that the school lunch fund would have otherwise had.
$84,000 for the whole year was taken out of general fund.
Which I don't remember what it was last year, but I think that is a lot lower than in prior years. Last year, actually, we had a small positive balance, but in the year prior to that, 2017, there was a large transfer in. So I think even though $84,000 is a lot of money, I think it is a little bit lower than what it has been in prior years.
If I remember correctly, though, wasn't it multiple years that we had to transfer the funds into to reset it to zero?
It's very each and every year. The exception was last year, and last year it had a positive balance of $819, so there was not much. But transferring money from the general fund into a school nutrition fund is very common across all other districts as well.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask a follow-up. I've seen that citizens are donating money for school lunches, and that is funneled through this account. How does that work? If somebody wants to pay for student debt for lunches.
Correct. Your student debt is, I believe, goes through the new Mosaic school nutrition system. It does not, to my understanding, does not flow through the ADS or Pro Fund Encode software system that you're using. If someone wants to donate money and pay off some outstanding balances, that is recorded through the Mosaic point of service system that Jeannie that has been newly implemented and that Jeannie takes care of.
I'm trying to connect the dots. So would that impact the...
A lot of this revenue is primarily your federal school nutrition funds that you get. The donations are a different
would be a
piece
separate.
of that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. And then your adult ed and capital projects funds, school grants all have positive fund balances. And that would be all that I have. Any questions?
Sure. Just another, it's a donation question again. If citizens were to donate, for example, we've had discussions about bus arms or whatever. You don't even know that. But anyway, okay. Something to do with the buses.
Okay.
Right? And they want to donate some money so that we can make a purchase. That money, how does that money flow? It comes to us, they write a check to the district, and does that flow for buses? Would that flow through the transportation? How does that work?
If it's a donation, I am sure, I don't know if the board has a specific policy where the donation has to be presented to the board has to accept the donation, and then from that point on, it would, I am sure it's probably not grant specific, it's more general fund related. So then once the board approves that donation, they bring the check or to Stacy. Stacy makes the deposit. If I were to guess, Stacy would post that revenue in the other revenues account or a donation income account, and it would just add to the district's revenues.
Just one thing we want to be careful of is that through our budget process, we are limited as far as how much we can spend. So putting things to the general fund and then spending through that then may impact our ceiling that we've been granted by the taxpayers. And so be careful.
Yes.
Does anyone have any questions, Elaine?
I just have one more. In the annual financial report,
Yep.
on page 23, Can you explain to me? I just want to make sure that I'm seeing these numbers: capital assets, accumulated depreciation. Can you just run over those numbers for me, just real quickly, please?
Yep. So your capital assets are what the district owns for assets, infrastructure, school buses, copiers, any furniture, computers, although we're seeing less and less of computers being capitalized because the district does have a capitalization policy of $5,000. So what that means is if the district is to buy a computer that if the cost is less than $5,000, it is expense. If it's costs $5,000 or more, it's considered a capital asset, of which that capital asset has to be tracked and depreciation taken on that asset over the life of the asset, and management then decides what life to assign to that asset. So that is your total. The $79,000 represents your total capital assets of everything, that all the assets that the district owns: the buildings, the buses, computer, land, etc. The accumulated depreciation is the depreciation expense that has been taken over the life of all of these assets. That is close to $42 million. The building obligation and notes payable of $9.8 million represents your outstanding debt as of 6/30/19 that the district has. And you can see on if you go to page 26, section B, the three bonds, one being a regular note for the bus garage, are broken out. So that $9.7 million is the same number that you see on page 23.
Yep.
So that's your debt. And then the capital leases of $2.2 million are the outstanding balance on all your outstanding capital leases as of June 30, 2019. And those are, you can see the ending balances on page 27, the principal balance, and then there's a column for the interest.
Okay.
So that's what that represents.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I had a chance to spend some time with Amy in June. I think.
Correct.
Yes, and to talk about the concerns that she had about the timely deposits, and that's always, as a teacher, that's always a difficult thing. Do you want to collect all the scholastic money together at the same time? And so.
If there are different, I mean, I can't remember off the top of my head what the district has for a policy. I want to say if it's over $100,
yeah.
Yes.
It has to be made either daily or weekly. Daily might be a little extreme if it's over $100, but I do know that in prior years, the check deposit machines were not present at all of these schools.
But now they are.
And now they are. I'm
Right.
not sure if all the schools have them, but I know that Stacy has been a big advocate to try and get
Right.
each school to have a check deposit
And that's-
machine.
That's wonderful.
But then again, if somebody else aside from, let's say, the secretary is collecting the money, if the secretary doesn't receive that money, she
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
cannot make that deposit
It's true.
timely.
It's true.
So I just think it's communication with the admin team at each of the schools to really stress
Yeah, we
that
made
it's important.
Yeah, we talked. Chris and I talked about it as soon as I had finished talking to you. So,
Yeah.
So thank you very much. If no one has
Welcome.
any questions, this is always a lot of information to go over, and wow, very well presented. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just also as we're closing, just want to thank Amy and her team. That's when they come in and spend usually about a week with us a couple times a year. They are great as far as kind of fitting into our office and doing all the tasks and things, but also want to thank everybody in our business office. Amy's absolutely right. It is a small business office for the size of the budget that we manage, and they do an outstanding job. Again, it's public money, and we take public money very, very seriously, and they do a great job making sure that we're spending it and tracking it appropriately, given the immense tasks that they have in front of them. So I know some of them may be watching right now, so thank you very much for their service. And again, thank you to Amy and everyone at Casey, also from Runyon, Kirstine, and Willette, and for the support they provided over the years with their finances.
Thank you. Okay, before we move on, we did this earlier, but I want to make sure that we thank and congratulate our new board member, Jenny Butler, who is our new Wyndham board representative, who was elected yesterday, and our continuing board member, Mr. Scott, who was also elected. They were sworn in earlier by Linda. Thank you, Linda. And we're glad to have you a part of the school board. Thank you.
Marge, I beat you by 15 votes.
Okay, now let's have Mr. Hickey and the RSU 14 technology. I know she's watching too. We know you're watching, Marge. And so is Stacy. We know Stacy's watching too. Thank you, Stacy. Okay.
We're going to start off with Richie. Good evening, everybody. Congratulations. Thank you for being a part of the school board. My name is Richie Vickers. I'm the instructional technology lead for Jordan Small Middle School and Wyndham Middle School. But I have the blessings of Miss Hessler to go spread little ideas around in the other schools as well, because at the elementary schools we don't have a person in my role yet. So this year has been extremely busy for me, which means it's been a lot of fun. Our third graders, I believe this is the first year that they went one-to-one with their laptops. I have a third grader myself, so I'm a little biased to that grade. And whenever I met her teacher, I let her know, hey, I want to come be a part of your class and help support you. And right now we have 3/4 of our third graders at Wyndham Primary all using Google Classroom, which it's got to be a first because they've never had laptops. So I go in there and I give them a little spiel about, this is how we take care of our devices. They're expensive. Somebody's giving them to you to use. You got to make sure you take care of it. And after we go through a couple of different things, I give them this little activity as a slideshow where they get to click and drag and drop and cut and paste and make a snowman, and they really enjoyed that. We went on a field trip with them as well, where they took the class issued iPads, so they have a little class set, and we turned them into journalists. So we did a unit where we showed them what it was like to be a journalist and told them, hey, one day you might be one. You might do this project and decide you don't want to be one. That's okay. And we went through the process of what we know, what we want to know, what we need to learn. And then when they went on their field trip, they took the iPads with them. They were taking pictures and interviewing each other and interviewing the people that spoke with them. It was pretty neat. Yesterday, as a matter of fact, I got to hang out with my son's kindergarten classroom and teach them how to use the camera on their iPad. So we were taking pictures of the first letter of our name somewhere in the room and pictures of the first letter of our last name somewhere in the room. And then I'm hoping next time I get in there, I can really get them going on Seesaw. His teacher uses Seesaw, but I want the kids to use the Seesaw and start producing some stuff. But it's hard to get some teachers out of their comfort zone for a period of time. So that's our next step. Mr. Hickey's got this awesome video here in a little bit that he's going to show you about some of the stuff that our students are doing inside the classroom. It's pretty exciting because when you get to watch the students make things, it totally brings out a different meaning for their learning.
Thank you, Richie. Well, they strategically put me kind of in the middle. I'm humbled having seen Richie work with the classes doing integration. We have great integrators both. Thanks if you could pass those around. And then I'll set this forward. Thank you. we have Richie Vickers and we have Tammy McNulty, two excellent technology integrators. We have Michelle Lane doing the computer and robotics teams, the classroom teachers. They're all using a lot of the technology, and it's humbling to me just to be the support module of the whole thing. So we're going to finish up with the video, because if you were to watch that first, who wants to watch this guy go on and on with the nuts and bolts, right? So
Good call.
So we're going to review this document. The first is just a cursory overview of the night's discussion. How is technology used in the district currently for hardware and software? What's the future of technology by the steering committee plan? The future of technology in schools. So if you go to the second page of this document, let me scroll in here.
Do you want one? Or you can see it there?
Okay. Yeah, if you could shrink that a little bit, please. So this is where we are, and this functional document that's never the prettiest, but it tells year to year where we've expended, where we have equipment, what ratio of equipment we have, and where we're planning to go from here. So you can see in the bolded 2021 upcoming year, what are we running out of in the 1920 school year. You can see down the grade 6, the yellow bar, the grade 6 MacBook Airs for students and teachers is coming to end of life of the 4-year lease this year. So I don't want to get too far down the budget road, because we have to have a lot of A-team discussions. We've committed to nothing yet, but it looks like we're probably going to be looking towards upgrading those 6th grade devices. Coincidentally, the 7th and 8th grade devices, which are state funded, not locally funded, are coming to the end of their 4th year. And I'm sure you probably all heard a lot through the news. There's a 5th year from the state. There'll be no support, so no batteries, no power cables, no repairs. But at the end of this 5th year that you can see as a blank white spot, we'll own those devices. So we're now strategizing about what we're going to do for support of those. We're looking at all the options. Should and could we do the repairs in-house is one option. Infrastructure, which is the Apple Depot, is an option. They've offered pricing. We as a district have reached out to one vendor who is also capable of keeping up with that workload. We have pricing from them. We're in concert with another. And then we're going to take all of our work and then reflect it to other districts and see what they come up with. And then we're going to come up with the best evaluative plan on how we're going to support these, whether it's parts and service. Some of the vendors we're talking to offer better warranty than we've had in the past with infrastructure, in that there is no, gee, that's a broken screen that's not covered, gee, that's water damage or intentional damage. So there's a lot of variables to that, whether or not there's a case, etc. So we're in the throes of that, and I will keep everybody in the loop on how that goes. So in the green, light green, I tried to lump everything together of like equipment. So this board, the A-team, everybody has supported an additional 5 devices per year to build up the K1 inventory of iPads. So we're in year 1920. So upcoming year 2021, we have a couple of variables here, and we haven't had discussion on it yet. It just, should we add another 5 this coming year and 5 the year after that, which is displayed here? Should we look at, okay, we're now 15 out of roughly 25, should we look at 10? And so those discussions have to ensue, and then we'll keep the board in the loop on that. So that's pretty much where we are with hardware to date. This next diagram was supposed, you can see where MacBook Airs would be assumed to be purchased for the 6th grade. An additional kind of hole we found is we purchased 36 special ed iPads to supplement. They were old iPad 1s, iPad 2s. We went out, we got a list. There were 36 we purchased last year. We found out that's not enough. So we're targeting what needs to be supported for iPads for special ed throughout all grades. The tactile device sometimes helps those who don't have the ability to type as well on a MacBook Air. Then, to give you exact numbers, I know Mrs. Brick saves these documents, and she'll ask me these exact numbers year after year. So right down to the individual student of enrollment, as when this document was printed, this is exact enrollment as of within the last couple weeks. And of course that shifts all the time, so it's hard to get a moving target. But just to let you know, number of students per grade, per school and the campus, and then totals, and then total of staff plus students for the overall picture of what we're targeting for hardware. For transparency, we wanted everybody to know. Then the next one is classrooms per school, and so this shows like Wyndham Primary for K1 is currently 12 kindergarten classes, 11 first grade classes. So if we're going to target 5 or 10 devices for that, it's easy to see you've got 23 times 5 or 10 and what that investment would be. Next. Okay, so we've pretty much covered hardware on where we are. Then this is the software section. These are not all the softwares we use, clearly, but a lot of the larger ones. G Suite and Google Classroom, Apple Classroom. Apple Classroom is an opportunity this year in that it's ported to the new operating system that was put on over the summer for both iPads and MacBook Airs. We don't force this on the teachers, but if they choose to use Apple Classroom, take control of all the students' devices, they're capable of doing that. Infinite Campus, Jump Rope. We still have Jump Rope at RES and Manchester School. We have Illuminate at Wyndham Primary School, and all the other schools are on Infinite Campus. So the 2 middle schools have moved to Infinite Campus this year. Synergy is the state reporting module, Lexia for literacy, Alexandria for the library, NWEA for assessment, Reading A to Z, STEM Scopes. I think I misspoke. I wrote middle school for STEM Scopes. I think that's actually a grade 4, grade 5 tool. Gizmos, iReady, as you're all aware, the big math initiative this year, Moodle tools. So that's a lot of the larger software that we use throughout the district. Okay, so over the last year or so, thanks to Mr. Howell pulling everything together, getting a lot of good feedback from people at all levels, administrators, tech people, teachers. These are the kind of things that were highlighted, some of the more larger ideas of the offshoot of that group. So the iReady program, Lexia, Ames Web, NWEA, MacBook Airs 1-to-1 in grades 2 through 12 is where we are now, and K&1 iPads and MacBook Airs. So do an assessment of where we are. You can see down in Roman numeral 3, access to coding, robotics, 3D printing, BBots, and this we can thank the integrators and the teachers for. They've done a fabulous job of putting technology into the curriculum. Tools that are preparing students for tomorrow's jobs as well as today. I went to the Actum conference, saw Joe Boudreau up there from the middle school. He's doing great things. He and Jace Lanoy from middle school, at all levels, all grades, the teachers are doing fabulous things with technology in this district. And I learned about Maine CSTA, it's the Computer Science Technology Association, and they promote computer programming for students. And of course, nobody wants all students to be computer programmers, but it is a very, very viable revenue stream and job position for the future. And so I've gone to the Actum conference in the state, and there wasn't really anything about the last section coming up that was artificial intelligence. And then when I went down to the Boston MassQ conference at Foxborough, there was some there. But when I went to the ISTE, International Society for Technology and Education in Philadelphia, the national conference, there was more AI sessions than you could shake a stick at. So I'm going to get to that last section. Virtual reality, this is where you put on virtual reality goggles. Augmented reality mixes reality with the virtual world. The SAMR model, substitution, augmentation, modification, redefinition. this district has definitely moved from just substituting smart boards for projectors and the substitution, augmenting and modification, and moved into redefinition with the advanced topics of 3D printing, programming, robotics, staff proficiency website, and project-based. So now we come to AI, and I don't want to lead people to believe that the district has made a major commitment to AI. It's just we see this as a potential tsunami of impact in the future. So we've covered where we've been, where we are, and looking to the future of where we may be. So this whole section on AI, there are quotes from Elon Musk, Bill Gates, kingpins in the technology on the import and danger of AI. There's feedback in technology education trends, as I mentioned, the ISTE conference, but it's not just there. This document, it has live links in it, so I will definitely share the Google Doc with the board so you can get to those links. But MIT did a study on AI surrounds children. It's everywhere. Now, this next quote says it'll kill 400 to 800 million jobs by 2030. That's their crystal ball. I'm not sure I agree with that. Are they overstating the size? No, I don't think so. Are they overstating the time frame? Probably. It won't be that quick, but it will be eventual. AI is capable of affecting all jobs everywhere. I mean, we've seen the kiosks in McDonald's taking over the front line positions, the automated hamburger. We've seen all of that. But honestly, AI can write programs better than a lot of people already, and it's only going to continue. So the advanced jobs, medical scans, pick up things doctors didn't, verify things the doctors did. So there's 12 software companies, which was really interesting. And when you follow that link, it goes on to multiple companies who use AI in education. And what they do is customizable, self-paced education, kind of what we've asked teachers to do with students. And I don't think anybody sees AI as taking over a teacher role, because you're always going to need the human factor in that role. But it gives them another tool to differentiate instruction for 25 kids that's changing throughout the day. I think it's an impossible task to do individually by a person, but with AI as a tool, I see that as a very positive future. So there's Siri, Google Assistant, Amazon Alexa, unmanned vehicles, delivery of pizza via a car, as well as the drone flights, AI facial recognition on a grand scale. I'm not sure if any of you saw that story within the last month. They have, I can't remember, it's like 500 gigabit and it is capable of picking out a human face, one human face in a crowd of hundreds or thousands of people. They can drill down to that resolution and recognize people. So this is just absolutely phenomenal, the upside. Quantum computing, I'm not sure if you all saw this, but Google is alleged to have done what would be 10,000 years worth of computing in 200 seconds, 3 1/3 minutes. Yeah. So my theory is, we started as a society on this planet as hunters-gatherers. You wanted wealth, you went found it, you got it. Agrarian, we grew our own food. Industrial age, most people don't know, it goes back to the 1750s and 1760s with looms and replacing hand tools. So there was a long industrial age. And then the industrial age is basically mechanical muscles without brains. The information age, which started in the mid-1900s, is brains without muscles. Robotics is the combination of two, and AI is a self-directed, maybe someday self-aware thing to the next level. So looking at our crystal ball as a group, we would never make a commitment without board, teachers, community, everybody else. But this is just something that's piqued our interest to keep an eye on for the future. And with that, we get to the movie, so you don't have to listen to me anymore.
Does anybody, before we do that, does anybody have any questions as we go along? Or? Nope. Okay. Movie time.
Movie time.
It's a Terminator.
iRobot.
My daughter just disappeared. I looked back and she was gone. Where are you right now? At our house at 15 Riverside Avenue.
can see on the screen behind you.
Yeah, it's right there.
And I turn around, and all I see is a flash of a lady with gray hair and a white nightgown. I screamed her name, and all I heard is a cheeky voice saying, "Mommy."
Where was the last place you saw it?
Sitting right here next to this rock. Each person wrote like a mini story. Okay. And then we took a vote, and 6 stories won. We were split. Each class was split up into 6 groups, and each group would get a story. And you have to write a script about it, and like then make the radio show or the recording about it. For our sound effects, we would find them on YouTube, and then we would put them into a MP3 like maker thing, and then drag that into our file, and then put that in our GarageBand. And when I recorded everybody talking, I used GarageBand for that, and I recorded them at different parts. So like I'd have one line I'd have someone record one line, and then I'd have someone record their next line, so it would be one line at a time. So mine is a complete different method from what they used. I used 2 different laptops for mine, or 3 different laptops actually. One laptop was for I needed the whole thing to come together, and the other 2 laptops, one was for music and one was for sound effects. It was a really amazing experience for us to do this and have the opportunities to do it.
Yeah, in the middle of the road, waiting for me. I tried swerving the car to avoid him. He stepped in front of the car. I knew what he wanted. He wanted me to crash the car so that he could take me back.
22. Right, that's you. Give me a thumbs up. So you're going to do 3 things that you already know about Windows. So Edmund's got a good one up here where he uses, it's called Scribble, but you can take the pencil and actually draw some pictures. Get a chance to look at it. What we'll do at the end of the class is for next class, review each one. Maybe I'll have you erase your name so you can figure out which graffiti board belongs to which person in the end.
Damon, purple. My road.
Miss White had letters in the middle of the night. Saw a ghost eating toast out of the house.
Anyway, that was a couple of examples of statues, how these people were made out of, and a few other things. But, the one thing, this is a sculpture. Yeah.
Hey everyone, I'm Dylan, and this is my friend Justin. Justin, get up here. So today we're going to be explaining what a sculpture is. So this is my sculpture. He's a genie, and he's coming out of a comb. So how I made this is, first we used wires as the bone.
This Kahoo is used for your own practice of the vocabulary word. Okay, this is your own practice working on it for yourself. It's not a competition. Whatever the scores and the scoreboard at the end, there'll be no fuss about that. Okay, this is for your own practice, your individual practice. You're challenging yourself and only yourself. You're not in a race against your classmates.
Let's go bring up pictures from our field trip. You can choose 6 pictures. You want to choose pictures, not videos. The videos have the numbers at the top. Hi, my name is Harper Martin, and my favorite character is Charlotte because she's encouraging Wilbur to do his best so that he won't get killed by the humans. So first we had to take a picture of our story, but Ryder gave me some help, so I did what he did. I put it in there, and then I took a picture. Then I told the story. It just did bike training day. It didn't do the, but it's okay. It also sounds good.
You like doing things like that?
I love reading.
Answer the question, why are some apples green and some red? Make sure to start with some apples are red and some are green because, or apples are different colors because.
Very good.
I'd like to thank the integrators, the teachers, and Gary Harriman for the fabulous job he did in making that.
Yeah, it's really, really good. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Or
I do have a question, if I may.
Oh, yes.
So I ask this every year. So I was hoping that you might be able to come up with some type of report. I'm sure it looks like the equipment is being used. Do you have any type of way of tracking the utilization of a lot of this equipment that
you mean percentage?
That we're providing the students? Yeah. Is there a percentage of time that these kids are using this, time that the equipment is being left idle? So is there a way of tracking?
I'm not quite aware of one, but we'll look into it further.
Okay. And then I have another question, if I may.
Yes.
So my wife will every now and then ask me to do something on her MacBook Air, pay bills or something like that. I'm a PC guy. I get in front of a MacBook Air and I don't know what I am doing. I have zero idea. Are we at all worried that our kids are going to get in front of a PC and not know what they're doing? Is that a concern?
Well, not really so much because, let's face it, the kids are very adaptive. Some have Apple phones, some have Droid phones.
Yeah, very true.
PC, Mac. They seem to adapt pretty well.
Okay.
So I can interject a little bit here. I'm actually going to hang out with the academic support team at Wyndham Primary School. So that's going to be like a lot of the ed techs and stuff that work directly with the students. And on Wednesdays, their day is totally different because they have early release days. So they have planning periods and professional development time. So I've been able to go work with them for a couple hours this year on 2 different occasions. And they were all Windows-based PCs up until, was it this year? Was that when they switched over, or maybe at the end of last year, and they went to Apple? So they were just like you, 100% lost. But the learning curve is not as steep once you start using the devices. So for example,
Sorry.
Go ahead. I'm trying to be gentle. But for example, with a Windows PC, a right click, left click on the trackpad or the mouse. You go to an Apple, they don't have buttons, but instead they have intuitive trackpads. So just one finger clicking is a left click, and a 2-finger click on the trackpad is a right click. So it's super small things, and it does take usage and it does take practice. Would they be lost for the first week? Maybe.
Okay. All right. Absolutely.
So I work, I hire frontline staff, because I get a lot of kids who are at college that feel like Apple products. You don't have Apple products in the workforce, it's just not a thing. And I haven't seen
Okay.
their schooling left and right.
All right. Good. No, I
think it's a legitimate concern, though. I think it's definitely something to be aware of.
Okay. Every time I go to use my wife's Apple, it never fails. I go to swipe the screen every time, and every time I'm like, so I just wanted to ask. I'm sure kids are very adaptive. So, all right. Well, thank you. That was.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you all.
Very, very much.
It was good.
Really
Thank you.
great.
Thanks, Richie.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we'll have a motion to approve the minutes of the October 2nd meeting.
I move to approve the minutes of the October 2nd, 2019 meeting.
It's been moved
Second.
and seconded. Any public comment? No. Any board discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? Are you abstaining? Okay. Okay. I have a motion for the October 16th meeting.
I move to approve the minutes of October 16th, 2019 meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any public comment? Bob's not going to comment. Any board discussion? Yeah, it's not a.
Anna, did you have to leave for the executive session on that last meeting? Yeah, I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
I was
Yes.
strongly encouraged.
I kicked her out.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
So
All.
in that case, if you look at the voting for
Yeah. That's why I asked.
Okay.
No, because you voted to go into executive session. Yes.
Yes.
I needed to make sure that you weren't there for the executive session.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nope. You were in the fog. Okay. So, all those in favor? No opposed. Motion carries. Superintendent's report.
Sure. I have a couple things to share tonight. First of all, I have a certificate to be able to share. 2 weeks ago, we had a chance to go to Maine School Management's annual conference, and we received the certificate this week to present this award from the Maine School Board Association to Kate Bricks in recognition of 17 years of dedicated service to education in Maine. So congratulations, Mrs. Bricks.
There's a story there.
Sorry, I couldn't resist.
No,
A couple things I want to highlight tonight for the public is that, first of all of our buses have passed inspection, which is great. Maine State Police comes in, and they did it in 2 waves this year with grabbing buses. Everything passed inspection. We did have 2 buses that had to be taken out of service by an hour just to correct a couple things, but then were instantly put back into service. Also want to mention that we have a couple of buses that have fallen in the most recent Daimler Chrysler bus recall, and it has to do with the level of padding which is in some of the seats. We've been told by not only our manufacturer but our bus supplier that it does not require the buses be taken out of service, and it's anticipated that somewhere around December 2nd that those recall items for additional seat foam will be put in, but at this point there's nothing to indicate that we actually have to take those buses out of service. Also in the transportation world, as a district, we have submitted application for 2 buses for the Volkswagen settlement. And I don't know if the public remembers, but Volkswagen had a sizable settlement against it for falsely claiming emission rates. And so funds were paid to different state governments. We have the opportunity to put in an application to have buses replaced, and really it's to target buses that may not be at the same environmental standards. Specifically, if I remember correctly off the top of my head, it's buses produced prior to 2011. And we do have buses in our fleet, and so we're hopeful that we might be able to get 2 free buses out of this process. And this is a second round that districts have had the opportunity to go through. Second round definitely being much more organized than the first round was when this same thing happened last year. And I know Gorham, I think, received 3 buses last year through this process. So having that opportunity. Also, while we're in the world of transportation, we'll have notification going out hopefully to parents by the end of next week, where we're going to be implementing an app called Ride 360. Within that app, parents can see estimated time based upon their students' bus stop, when that bus will arrive to pick up their student or drop off their student. There was an upgrade to the app within the last couple days that instead of having a little yellow indicator that shows coming an actual school bus on the little app that shows it's tracking, but also gives parents the opportunity to say, my scheduled bus time is 2:29 and it looks like the bus is going to be there today at 2:31. So we are working, in order for parents to use it, they need their student state ID number that's in Infinite Campus, and so Bob is helping us out with a mass email that will give parents directions on how to download the app, as well as to be able to then implement their kids. And the whole system works off of the GPS locators that we have in all of our vehicles that identifies here's when the bus left based on the stops and what's scheduled where it's going to be. So it's an app we already owned. It was technology that was part of our Versatran transportation package. All the data's in there. So we're pretty excited to be able to roll that out and to see where that might be. One last, or 2 last things. One is, and the board's very aware because you took a vote that the revolving applications for revolving renovation funds was opened up by the state. The state had $20 million that was available for that. According to the state, they received 140 applications for $50 million worth of repairs to schools. So we're hoping at least we'll get some sort of a chunk of money out of that for some needed repairs. And right now, we are heading into, I think we've got the musical that's opening up, not this weekend, but the following weekend. We have Sister Act at Wyndham High School in the Performing Arts Center, which will be not only next weekend, but the weekend after. And then I think we're 3 weeks away from AmFam and that run between the holidays where things get super busy for everybody. But that's where we're at the moment.
Thank you. Wonderful. Committee reports?
Facilities meets on the 20th.
Okay. Policy?
Policy meets next week.
All right. Board roundtable is an opportunity for board members to address the community, offer congratulations, school news, suggest agenda items, etc. And our policy is not to, our recent policy, protocol is not to make people say whether they have something that is, if you do have something to add or say, you can just say it. Probably have to be recognized by the chair first. So if anybody has anything? Nothing? I will say that I got a chance to see the new building shed that was made. I don't hesitate to call it a shed because it's really wonderful. Eagle Scout project that Declan Danzig did, and he will be coming to talk to us about it at RES last night, and he did a wonderful job. He and the other scouts that helped him did a really wonderful job. And that's all I have. So I'll have a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor? We are adjourned.